I would ask is when you're vetting out some companies, what experience do they have in the HOA world? Ask for not only recent projects, but some recent contacts from projects in the last 3 to 6 months. They're not just cherry picking, their favorite ones. And then in transparency, one of my favorite things is this, ask them about jobs that didn't go perfectly and how they overcame those challenges and how they resolved issues. And when they give you those answers, ask for which community it was. Maybe ask to talk to some board members from that community. That's huge.
HOA Insights is brought to you by 5 companies that care about board members: Association Insights and Marketplace, Association Reserves, Community Financials, Kevin Davis Insurance Services, and the Inspectors of Election. You'll find links to their website and social media in the show notes.
Welcome back to HOA Insights, common sense for common areas. I'm Robert Nordlund, and I'm here today for episode number 141 with Jeremy Lara, the president of Baja Roofing. It's a family-run roofing company dedicated to serving HOAs and property management communities all across Southern California. Jeremy's one of our listeners, and when he suggested being on the show to give a roofer's point of view to our board member audience, that was an easy yes. Now remember, we had Gavin Nelson from Merchants Bank on the show back on episode 128, and that episode gave our audience a sneak peek into what bankers do for an association. So today we have a roofer on the show to help you see life from their point of view. What they do, how, when, why, and what makes it more or less expensive for you. Last week's episode 140 was another conversation with regular co-host Kevin Davis on the latest insurance and budgets and risks and claims and board member behavior type subjects. And I always enjoy that time that I spend with Kevin on the program. If you missed that episode or any other prior episode, take a moment after today's program to listen from our podcast website, hoainsights.org, or watch on our YouTube channel. And better yet, subscribe from any of the major podcast platforms so you don't miss any future episodes. Well, those of you watching on YouTube can see the HOA Insights mug I have here that I got from our merch store, which you can browse through from our hoainsights.org website, or we'll put a link in the show notes. And you'll find we have some great free stuff there, like board member Zoom backgrounds and some specialty items for sale like the mug. So go to the merch store, download a free Zoom background, take a moment while you're there, look around, find the mug you'd like, and email it to me at podcast@reservestudy.com with your name, shipping address, mug choice, mentioning episode 141 mug giveaway. And if you're the 10th person to email me, I'll ship that mug to you free of charge. Well, we enjoy hearing from you, responding to the issues you're facing at your association. So if you have a hot topic, a crazy story, a friend you'd like to have on the program, or a question you'd like us to address, you can contact us at 805-203-3130 or email us at podcast@reservestudy.com. Now, this episode was prompted by George from Des Moines, Iowa, who asked actually a while ago, and we were kind of wondering how we're going to handle this, what are we going to do with this. But I remember it says, our reserve study says we need a new roof next year, but how do we know? Can we trust them? I don't want roofs on all our 5 buildings to leak, but I also don't want to replace them when they have a couple of years left. What do I do? Well, I thought that was a great question, and fortunately now we have Jeremy Lara on the program here with an expert answer. So Jeremy, welcome to the program, and how would you respond to George?
Yeah, first and foremost, Robert, thank you for having me on the program.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would say, George, that's a fantastic question. It's actually a question that we get quite often. And my answer to that would be I'd look at the reserve study as more of a preventative warning rather than a hard deadline, right? The reserve study is really a financial planning tool to help set expectations, but it doesn't really come with a physical roof inspection that you're going to need. So what I recommend doing is getting some additional options from some reputable roofing companies or even a third-party roofing consultant. To be completely transparent, sometimes these consultants are in cahoots with certain roofing contractors out here, the ones that push to give them commission. So that's why I always suggest getting at least 3 independent reports from reputable roofing companies in the area. That way you can provide the boards with some options, whether it needs to be repaired, restored, or if it actually has to be replaced. There's usually not an answer that fits one particular predicament.
Can I follow up on that? I realized after I read that question from George, I remember hearing a joke. What do you expect when you ask a barber if you need a haircut? They're going to say, yes, you need a haircut. So I understand George's concern. He doesn't want to ask a roofer if they need a new roof because the roofer's going to be, of course, there's work we can do for you. But you're right. A roof is probably going to be one of the association's biggest ticket items, and they don't want to go too late and they don't want to go too early. So I like your recommendation that get a few opinions. Look for reputable people. Where would you find reputable people?
I mean, so some organizations that I'm a part of have some reputable roofing companies. But really talk to, if you're a property manager, talk to the other managers in your area. If you're a board member, ask to speak to some other property managers. Ask your manager to get some information from some other managers that have had some good experiences with roofers. I always recommend that route. It's usually the easiest route to go.
Yeah, referrals is good. And I also appreciate you mentioning that the reserve study is a guide. It's not something stamped in concrete, because we're budget consultants. We want to get the association ready for that big roof project, but it's not necessarily exactly when the roof needs to be done. So I appreciate that clarification. So you go, I guess, guided by the reserve study. You know that your roof life is getting low. So when it gets within a year or two, is that when you start to reach out for some wise counsel?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to, truly identify when the roof is at its life's end. So it's really important to have multiple opinions as far as what to look for in a roof. And in different roofs show different signs of deterioration, right? Whether you're looking at shingle roofs, flat roofs, or tile roofs, there's always some different caveats that contribute to the roof approaching the end of its life cycle. So it's really important, like I said, just to make sure you have a independent roofing consultant as well as a third-party consultant really evaluating the roof, even if you have to spend a few $1,000s to get it done. In the long run, it's going to save you, tens of thousands of dollars from making the wrong decision.
I like that. Okay, so that's an encouragement to be proactive and be willing to spend a little bit of money. And like in so many things in life, it takes money to save money. And that's a wise little bit of advice. Does the average roof give you a little bit of a heads up that it's at the end of its life when you get a leak in a corner or a leak in a specific area? Is that typically reveal a weak link and give you the heads up that, hey, we're serious about this. We need to, we need to get ready to replace this roof? Does it often give a telltale?
Sure. I mean, usually, the rule of thumb is when your roof starts leaking, it might be at the end of its life. But again, that's going to be contributing to a few different factors. Maybe the workmanship from the previous roof just wasn't done correctly, and that's why it's leaking. So some telltales, for instance, what's shingle roofs? Say your community has a bunch of shingle roofs on their lot, and then you see a lot of the little granules starting to fall. You see them in the gutters or maybe in the driveways of the homeowners. I say that's the roof crying for help.
Okay.
Right. That's when it starts to degranulate. You see that happening a lot on flat roofs as well. Once you start to see some fiberglass resin, some degranulation, the mat underneath starting to be exposed, those are some definitely telltale signs that the roof is approaching the end of its life.
I like that. There's a lot of our board member audience here who has never been up on the roof. And I remember getting up on a flat roof, must have been 2 or 3 stories taller. I remember it was a significant ladder. And the lady board member who was with us, not a young person, she said, well, I want to come up with you. I was like, it's up to you. And by golly, this woman climbed the ladder. I told her how to do it safely. She joined us and she saw exactly what you were talking about, how on some flat roofs you can start to see the fabric, it seems like the fiberglass, the ribbing in it, some bubbles in it. There are telltales, but I think it's also wise to get that professional out there, because maybe it is just a corner of the roof that a tree has been rubbing up against. And if you fix that one area, got another 5 years left. So it doesn't
100%.
always mean, it's time to go. All right. We have a lot of board members here who are very cost conscious, and they're saving for that roof project. They've hopefully been saving for that roof project better part of 20 years. And that means that their hands have been holding on to that money for a long time. So we're trying to get them ready to release. Is it going to be more expensive to replace a roof a year or two early or a year or two late?
Got it.
Help us through that decision point.
Okay, yeah. Is it going to be more expensive to replace the roof a year too early or too late? I guess that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a trick question, but it's a situational answer because it really depends on the roofing system. More importantly, how was it installed in the first place? If a contractor promised you a 30-year roof, but you start having issues around year 20, then it may be actually more cost effective to replace it a little bit earlier to avoid some more costly emergency repairs. But, on the other hand, if the contractor did the right job from the start and the board and the management company actually stayed on top of the roof's maintenance annually, then you can usually stretch out that roof past its life expectancy timeline or its warranty. I would say it's a situational basis, but it's definitely going to be more cost effective to replace it earlier before you start getting into some structural damage if you have a history of some roofing issues that are related to water intrusion in your community.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that's my gut feel. Because once you start leaking into units, all of a sudden, you're going past the structural part into actual units and you're having damage. And all of a sudden, I think when it is time to finally do that roof, you're going to have a lot of extra repairs and extra costs. So that's thank you. That confirms what I've been seeing and what I've been feeling. But you mentioned something very important. You talked about maintenance. What does annual roof maintenance look like? And does even should a new association be doing annual roof maintenance?
Absolutely. So again, with the annual roof maintenance, what that typically looks like, again, it's going to depend on the right type of roof that you have, but let's just call it a flat roof, right? If you don't have a lot of trees or a lot of vegetation in the area that's contributing to debris falling on the roof, then, one time a year, you're going to get your roofing company out there, take a look at the roof. I call them the chuck in the trucks because we got chuck in the truck with the bucket going out there and it's doing some preventative maintenance. Some preventative maintenance goes a long way.
Some sealant here, some sealant there.
The pipes have the sealants and they start drying up and they start having some little hairline cracks. You seal it up, and that's really what preventative maintenance does. And it's going to make sure that it performs how it's supposed to. And then when we start seeing the roof crying for help, as we call it, degranulating, you can catch it early and do some preventative patches. Now, if the roof is brand new, it's often a misconception of not needing maintenance for, 10 years down the line. But the one thing with that is a lot of companies, they have this fine print, especially with the manufacturers, stating that if you don't get the roof looked at by a certified installer, then your warranty can be void. So in 5 years, if you have a leak and if it's not being maintained and inspected annually, there's a terminology and exclusion in the contract that can get the roofing company and the manufacturer out of that warranty when you just paid $1 million for your roof. So it's very important to make sure you read the fine print when it comes to trying to look for the right contractor for warranties.
Yeah. Often when we hear the term fine print, we feel that we're getting snookered, but it sounds to me like with an automobile or a gasoline automobile, we need to say nowadays, if you're not doing your regular oil changes, you're not going to get the life expectancy out of that engine. And no one's surprised. It's just part of taking good care of your automobile's gasoline engine is doing that regular oil change. I'm thinking now about roofs I've been up on, flat roofs, since you were speaking about it, where I'd be up there and I'd be just confronted with a lot of tree debris. And I realized, oh, this is not good. Or I could see that there's been a lot of air conditioner repairmen up there, and there's sharp objects, there's things up there that shouldn't be there, and puncture opportunities. And so I'm all in support of maintenance to make sure your roof is clean, it's going to drain, make sure it's not turning into a swimming pool up there, those kinds of things.
Yeah, no, we can't stress enough how vital maintenance is on a roof.
Boy, I've got so many questions. Tell me, if it's let's say a 5-building association, do you generally expect to do all 5 roofs at the same time, kind of for economies of scale and because they were effectively built at the same time? Or do you see roofs, even that close together, have a little bit different life expectancy?
That's a great question too. So typically, hypothetically speaking, if the roofs
Yeah.
were all done simultaneously in the past, it's always best to get them done simultaneously in the future. Number one, we'll just rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to have the disturbance up front for the couple of months, and then you'll never have to see us the remaining 30, 40 years. But however, it's on a situational basis, right? It really depends on the community's budget. If they just simply can't budget for all 5 to be replaced simultaneously, look for a roofer who can offer some financing. So we give our communities a 12 months financing so we can do all 5 buildings and they can have a year to pay it off. We know with zero interest. Or come on an annual plan. We get 1 roof done per year. So it really depends on the reserve study, on how well the budget is allocated towards the roof. But typically, it's always best just to get them all done at the same time.
Well, you said to minimize the disruption. I imagine there's economies of scale there too. So if you're able to do all 5 at once, rather than mobilizing 5 times once a year for 5 years, that's probably going to be less net expensive for the association too. Is that fair?
No, that's 100% fair. I mean, as you know, with inflation rates, especially here in Southern California, price of labor and materials are constantly going up annually. So it will be less expensive for the association.
Got it. So if it's, just make the numbers easy, $1 million project to do 5 roofs, if you stagger it out, yeah, maybe you only hit what, $200,000 this year, but next year it'll be 225 or 250. The next year it'll be 275 or 300. Yeah, you're spreading out your cash flow, but inflation is not our friend right now. And so capturing it.
Don't forget about the tariffs either. A lot of the materials are made here in the USA, but a lot of the materials to make the products in the USA are shipped from overseas. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize. So the tariffs have a big part to play as well.
Wow. I would have thought the major brands did that kind of heavy, not heavy construction, heavy assembly, creating roof tiles, creating roofing materials, the felt. You're saying a lot of that comes from overseas?
A lot of the material comes from overseas, but it's assembled in the USA. So they can just slap a name tag on it just to say made in the USA. So it's really important too to keep an eye out for the manufacturers that are being used, because some of them might look more affordable up front, but you're not going to get the longevity from them, on the back end.
Got it. Okay. So with brands and materials matter. On my house, I have a single family home. I'm in a planned development, so I have an association, but I'm responsible for my roof. Last year, we replaced our tile roof, and we ended up paying for like a 30-year underlayment rather than the 20-year underlayment, because at my age, I want to say, this is the last roof I'm going to buy in my life. And there are some cost-effective things you can do. So brands, quality of materials make a difference. Talk to me about the quality of the installer. How do you know you're getting someone who's really good? I liked what you said earlier about referrals, because if a portfolio manager has had good experience here or there or somewhere else, that's a fantastic thing. But are there any, telltales, any memberships, alliances, certifications to look for?
Yeah. So this one's simple. Again, it goes back to doing your own research. A lot of these bigger corporations that you see out there, sometimes they don't, or most of the time actually, don't have an online presence, and they don't even show reviews. And sometimes that's by design. A lot of them treat communities just like another transaction, just another number on the board, no pun intended. But when you're looking for a roofer, you really want someone that specializes in the HOA space and that understands the complexities of working with board members and property management companies and multiple tenants at the same times.
Not that we don't love them, but board members and management companies can be a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And then, what I would ask is, when you're vetting out some companies, what experience do they have in the HOA world? Ask for not only recent projects, but some recent contacts from projects in the last 3 to 6 months. They're not just cherry picking, their favorite ones. And then transparency. One of my favorite things is this, ask them about jobs that didn't go perfectly and how they overcame those challenges and how they resolved issues. And when they give you those answers, ask for which community it was. Maybe ask to talk to some board members from that community. That's huge. And then reputation. It's always good to go with a company that does have an online presence and some good reviews. because, they're not scared to put themselves out there because they have a reputation that they're proud of.
I like that. In that hypothetical of a $1 million roof project, 5 buildings, I know right now it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be someone parked right where you needed to be one day, and so that slowed down a day of progress, or they found something wrong when they pulled the material off that required a repair and a change order. And that's what I think separates someone that you want to work with from someone that is an absolute pain. And is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of times, even companies, will come in at a really low number and then make it back on the back end with a bunch of unnecessary change orders.
All those normal things that do come up. Fascinating. Okay, well, I gotta sit on that for a while. Some interesting stuff. But I look, and fortunately, I look at the time here, and it's time to take a break to hear from one of our generous sponsors, after which we'll be back with more of this, talking about roofers and roofs and community associations, and basically common sense for common areas.
Is your HOA or condo self-managed and you don't want to work as hard volunteering? Are you full managed and looking to save money? Or are you looking to split the accounting from a manager's role for better service? Let Community Financials handle the monthly accounting for you. We collect dues, pay bills, produce financial reports, include portals, and help with other support services, all while providing awesome service. We love the opportunity to help you make your community accounting stress-free with our industry-leading systems and expert team. Visit our website, communityfinancials.com, to learn more.
And we're back. Well, during the break, Jeremy and I were talking about this interesting intersection between having a professional on your side, a construction consultant, a project manager, because after all, a $1 million roof project is not something you as a board member want to be adding to your daily workload. That's a lot of money, of association money to be spending. But yet, we want you to have a part in the process. So, Jeremy, talk me through the benefit of having a professional, yet what a board member can do to help make the process go smoother.
100%. So I look at it this way. I have my supervisors on site that tell me exactly what's going on out in the field, so I can make some really good informed decision.
Okay.
So I really urge board members to hire their own project manager. Sometimes they're very happy with the vendor that is in construction, that's doing their balconies or doing some major construction on their community.
They have to get lucky that they have a good one, though.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to put someone on your team.
So if they do have a good construction consultant or somebody that's in construction, oftentimes what's really popular, at least here in Southern California, is they'll hire us as a vendor to do the roof, but they'll hire the construction company that they already have built rapport with to supervise us, that has familiarity in the roofing industry, but that just doesn't offer roofing themselves. So you can do that, or you can actually hire a professional consultant to come and oversee the project. But a lot of times these professional consultants just kind of come in and stop in and just make sure everything's going to specs. But you'll get more of a homey feel, like if somebody was really on your team, if you hired a construction vendor that, you have built rapport with to oversee some of the other projects, major projects that are going on, especially with roofing.
Got it. Okay. So if you hire ABC consultants to help to make sure that the project, the $1 million, is getting spent well and spent wisely, how do you as a board member contribute to helping your construction consultant, helping the roofing company make sure that everything's going as smooth as it can?
Put the roofing company and the consultant in touch with each other. Let them know that they're working side by side with each other. The consultant will get the specifications written up from not only the roofing company, but they should have an assembly letter from the actual manufacturer as well. So then everybody has a guideline of exactly what to do. The construction consultant should have, the right safety protocols to be following regardless. So he'll just make sure that everything's copacetic on the job site. So the board just has to provide him with all of the, sensitive information that's been discussed between the vendor and the board members themselves.
Okay, kind of the glue to make the project work smoothly.
Yeah, and on top of that, daily updated pictures. We have a cloud software called Company Cam where we add the board members as collaborators. So every single day, and the construction consultants, they can see what's happening in real time.
So a board member, even though they're not the one going up on the roof, and let's say it's a flat roof where you really can't see up there and shouldn't be up there, you can at least see, they finished the tear off. It's a new color. New material got done, got installed. Wow, shiny things. The flashing is up. Oh, they're done with building 1. That looks like building 2. Just that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And most importantly, oh, they have delineators around the perimeter. Oh, they actually are wearing hard hats. They have high visibility, safe, jackets. Like they're safe. For me, that's the
Okay.
most important thing. I want to make sure that job site is safe. Materials that were purchased are being loaded. I can't tell you how many times a certain brand was promised, but a different brand was being installed. So
Interesting.
it's having all that data right in front of you for everybody's peace of mind is huge.
Excellent. And here on the program, we talk so much about communication, transparency. And that is between, here we're talking about between the provider, the inspector, and the board. But that's also something that you can live with there in the association in communicating to all the homeowners. How is their money being spent? Well, it's spent effectively. Maybe you can post a couple of pictures in the lobby once a week, a couple times a week to say, this is what the noise is doing upstairs. This is your money being spent. This is what the value.
We try to do that for them by putting some donuts out in the lobby because I know they're tired of us coming up there every single day. Usually we're in a community for at least a month, a couple of months sometimes. So it's nice to give back to some of the tenants sometimes.
Yeah, to say as long as we're here, let's make it a good experience for our clients.
Exactly.
I like that. What board behaviors make a project go poorly? What are things the board members should avoid doing?
Board members should, number one, avoid waiting until it's too late to put on the freaking roof. I can't.
Don't wait till it's raining.
Yeah, it's right now. It's October, and all the bids we've sent out in spring and summertime, bay and unpaid, this is in really bad condition and needs to have an approval, before it starts raining. They're barely getting the wheels turning because wintertime is right around the corner. Daylight savings is a month away. So one of the things that makes the projects go poorly and more costly is just waiting until it's too late. Because a lot of times we're not going to expose a roof that's 50,000 square feet wide when, we have a lot of overcast. We just can't do it.
Because you're just inviting problems.
Yeah, and there's way too much liability on our end. There's no way we're going to do that. So we have to do some emergency repairs and patches that still may not work. So they're just spending some more unnecessary money. And they're doing a disservice to the community that way and their tenants. Another thing is behaviors that make our life harder is micromanaging to the point where it's delaying our progress. Not getting all the data and information you need from the vendor. So when you're doing a roof replacement project with your vendors, you want to make sure that everything is dialed in, the complete schedule, not just, hey, we'll start this day and we'll finish this date, but, have them break it down week by week so you're able to communicate with all of the tenants. The board themselves know exactly what to expect. Because when you don't have that clear line of communication, like you touched on earlier, it just creates a lot of confusion and sometimes concerns, which is concerning the board. And then that concern is going to go to the vendor, delay the project, and then the relationship starts to turn a little bit sour.
Yeah, it starts to get frayed around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I think about the boards that wait until it's raining, the most you can do is do that last minute patching, maybe put some plastic up there and say, in your inside voice, you should have called me 6 months or a year ago. In your outside voice, you say, that'll hold you pretty good until blank, until the weather clears or until springtime.
Yeah. And in my inside voice too, a lot of board members don't realize if you have a flat roof, especially, you can't tarp the flat roof. There's not much you can do with the flat roof. And on top of that, in my head, it's not only going to be costly for the board, but a good vendor is going to take accountability and responsibility for that community. So they're going to do everything they can to protect the tenants. And it's just going to, delay their own processes internally. It's always great to be proactive and approaching roof situation that needs to get serviced and replaced.
I think that brings us right back to the start. Timing, making sure you're getting it done at the right time. Look at your reserve study, get an idea, get a consultant, get a roofer out there to confirm that, and then make sure you're starting well in advance. Look for someone who's credible and prepare effectively, get the right help on your team, and help the process go smoothly. No micromanaging. So that's a lot of good stuff. Well, I got to ask you, what got you into this crazy business serving community associations?
Well, what got me into the roofing business, I didn't really have a choice. I was roofing since I was a young kid. I'm a third generation roofer. So that got me into the roofing industry. I'm
If you
getting,
got when they take blood, it's kind of tar and
yeah,
it's a little black.
came out with a hammer in my hand.
Yeah.
So I'm not even kidding. I'm 34 years old with 20 years experience. So I was forced into this industry. But how I got into serving communities is actually a funny story because I came from an industrial and commercial roofing background.
Okay.
I was out there swinging a mop when I was younger. We were always a company. My father, my grandfather, they were always the ones that were subcontracted out by these big, large corporations. So the quality of work was ours, but everybody else kind of took the credit for it. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I realized this. So once I took the reins from the company, I started steering our ship into the right direction by making those relationships and networking with the right people that led me to this organization, CAI, where I'm now networking with a bunch of managers that are managing these communities. And we've made a big splash. Right from the get-go, we've had some really good relationships built with some property management companies, and they've vouched for us. They've went online to give testimonies about us. Board members have given testimonies about us. And we even got some Karens to give some testimonies about us. So word spread pretty quick. And they like that we're still independently family ran and owned. My cousin's my vice president. My brother's my financial consultant. I have my partner that's, answering the phones. It's truly family owned. And they like that as compared to, these major nationwide corporations and these private equity owned companies. So we've been doing very well for ourselves, and I really appreciate, all of the success that we've had so far.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that also. We run a small business here at Association Reserves, and when you put the client first, a lot of good things happen.
And, a rising tide should raise all ships.
Yeah, so take good care of your customers. They'll take good care of you. Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you for joining us here on the program. I was going to wrap, but I do have one more question I want to ask. Okay, Southern California, when it starts to rain, do you begin to cringe? Or is that a good day because it means it's going to make the phone ring and set up work for next year?
A little bit of both. I do have some PTSD from growing up. It's funny because at night I'm thinking about the business and building it. So I put on some headphones. I have some soothing music. One night in the middle of the night, the track switched to rainfall on the window, which usually is supposed to be soothing, but it freaked me out because I had
a roofer.
Yeah, not for a roofer. So it did rain recently, and we didn't have any issues. All new leaks coming in from customers that haven't got the roof done from us. So that really made me excited coming into this season right here. So when it rains, we're prepared now. We got a bunch of trucks in the trucks ready to rock and roll. And we have the bandwidth now to service 3 counties here in Southern California: Los Angeles, Orange County, and the Inland Empire.
I'm writing that down. That's fun. Chuck in the truck. There was a phrase that a painter friend of mine said. I think it was blow and go. So, no, it was, I'll think of it right after we finish the episode, but fun stuff. Anyway, Jeremy, thank you so much. It was great talking with you and having you on the program. Any closing thoughts to add for our audience here?
Let's see, my closing thoughts, the roofs come and go, but the communities are here to stay. The choices that the boards make for their roofs just doesn't affect, the current group, the current board, but it's going to affect the future boards down the line.
Yeah.
So just make sure, you do your due diligence, vet out a few different contractors, and, make the right choice for, generations to come.
Yeah. You don't want future boards cursing you because you got a lousy roof saving $50,000, but it's going to last 10 years less than it should.
Exactly.
So, yeah, good. All right. Well, everyone, if you'd like to get in touch with Jeremy or learn more about the work they do in California at Baja Roofing, you can go to their website at bajaroofing.com. That's BAJAROO. Well, you can spell roofing.com, or reach them at Jeremy at bajaroofing.com. Well, we hope you learned some HOA insights from our discussion today that helps you bring common sense to your common areas. We look forward to having you joining us for another great episode next week.
You've been listening to HOA Insights, Common Sense for Common Areas. You can listen to the show on our podcast website, hoainsights.org, or subscribe on any of the most popular podcast platforms. You can also watch the show on our YouTube channel. Check the show notes for helpful links. If you like the show and want to support the work we do, you can do so in a number of ways. The most important thing you can do is engage in the conversation. Leave a question in the comments section on our YouTube video. You can also email your questions or voice memos to podcast@hoainsights.org or leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. If you gain any insights from the show, please do us a huge favor by sharing the show with other board members you know. You can also support us by supporting the brands that sponsor this program. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed by the podcast do not constitute legal advice. You'll want to consult your own legal counsel before making any important decisions. Finally, this podcast was expertly mixed and mastered by Stokelight Video and Marketing. With Stokelight on your team, you'll reach more customers with marketing expertise that inspires action. See the show notes to connect with Stokelight.